everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Amanda N, and today I wanted to talk just a little bit about Lizzie Borden. The biggest reason why is because Lizzie Borden, well, the Lizzie Borden Museum anyway, actually holds a lot of personal value to me. I want to start this video off with just a small personal story. You absolutely don't have to believe this because, frankly, I'm not going to show any receipts or proof that this story is real. I do still have the photo, but if I show it, then it would be pretty obvious who the identity of the persons involved are, so it's just not happening. You can believe me, you don't have to. I think I'd have to be pretty crazy to make this up, but I'm just putting it out there. So, about 4 years ago now, I was living just over an hour away from the Lizzie Borden Museum. My roommate, who I'll just call Kim, was very obsessed with ghost hunting, all things creepy, you name it. Kim drew these bloody clowns and had some very weird artwork around our apartment. So one day she went to the Lizzie Borden Museum with a friend and came back. Kim told me that she brought a souvenir and she had me close my eyes. She said, "Hold out your hand, I want to give it to you." When I did, she slipped a glove over my hand. Kim had stolen a glove from the Lizzie Borden Museum. A glove that Lizzie Borden's mother, or sister, I think it was mother, but her mother had actually worn. No, I am not kidding. Police showed up at her parents' door. This was still her legal address at the time since we'd only just moved in. I ended up having to drive her to the court to turn it in. She was fined, actually had felony charges brought against her because of this glove's value until it was, brought down to a misdemeanor since she turned it in. This was wild. Do not mess with Fall River, Massachusetts folklore. They will come at you. Now, I try to be skeptical at all costs. No, I don't think the glove was cursed, or I don't think it cursed either of us for taking it. But I'll say that just wearing it felt wrong. I can chalk it up to knowing the story behind it. It just felt heavy, as if I'd taken it off of someone who recently died and would have been angry to know that I was wearing it. I have no other way to describe it. I'm sure it was the connotation, but I had nightmares, regularly, until she gave that glove back. Yes, I know for a fact it was the actual glove because I have the photo of the glove. I was there in the courtroom when she had to give it back. I know it was legitimate. Again, you don't have to believe me, but I can't show the photo. I'm sorry, I'm not going to. Believe me or don't. But anyway, that's why I wanted to talk about this story, so that's just a little kind of unscripted personal note for you guys there. But as for Lizzie Borden herself, well, that's entirely separate. She was considered a spinster. She lived with her parents, Andrew and Abby Borden, when she was 32 years old. There's nothing wrong with being a 32-year-old single lady now, but back in the late 1800s, this was far more frowned upon. According to one source, despite Andrew's financial success, the family lived a frugal lifestyle. Their home didn't have, modern electricity or indoor plumbing, and Lizzie, who was fond of fine clothes and longed to travel, frequently chafed against her father's penny pinching, noting that a number of Borden relatives lived in the more socially prominent Fall River neighborhood known as the Hill. The wealthy Borden was not a popular man, and he had personal and professional disputes with a number of people, any of whom Lizzie later claimed could have had a motive to kill him. On the morning of August 4th, 1892, the lifeless bodies of Andrew and Abby were found in their home. Lizzie, Andrew, Abby, and the Borden's Irish maid Bridget were the only people known to have been in the house at the time of the murders. Andrew had been napping on a couch upstairs. Abby was cleaning an upstairs bedroom. Bridget, feeling unwell, was resting in her room. Around 11:30 a.m., Bridget said she heard screams, rushed downstairs, and then she found Lizzie yelling that Andrew had been killed. He had been so viciously attacked that his face was nearly unrecognizable. Bridget and a family friend soon found Abby's body upstairs. While their wounds were brutal, neither received the 40 or 41 whacks described in the nursery rhyme. Andrew was struck 11 times, and Abby received 18 or 19 blows. The whole Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks when she saw what she had done, gave her father 41 nursery rhyme is blatantly untrue. Not only does it sort of imply that Lizzie was a child, or at least that's kind of what I was told growing up, but there were no 40 whacks. Not that 11 is much better, considering it's still fatal. Also, I am no detective, but it's kind of worth noting that Abby actually received more blows than Andrew. So if this was committed by one of Andrew's business associates or someone who was mad at him, why wouldn't he receive more blows? At least that's just my line of thinking. Feel free to dismiss it. But Lizzie hired a fantastic defense team, and they played the gender card, saying that to the all-male jury, because women weren't allowed on juries at the time, that Lizzie, a well-liked churchgoer, wouldn't have been capable of committing such an act. She also fainted in the courtroom upon seeing plaster casts of her parents' butchered skulls. She didn't take the stand, but she was found not guilty. As part of her inheritance, she got $8 million, or in today's money, as part of the estate. Even though Lizzie seemingly had all this motive and means to commit the crime because she didn't agree with her parents, she wanted to live somewhere else, she didn't agree with how they handled money, even though, Lizzie, come on, it's their money, she was still found not guilty. But she wasn't totally let off the hook. Her relationship with her sister was pretty much destroyed. Newspapers hinted at her getting away with murder, children pranked her, she became a pariah, with seemingly only one supporter in a woman named Nancy. So, hey, at least there was some justice there to a small extent. Other sources speculate that Lizzie Borden may not have actually committed this crime, though they say that no other suspect was brought forward. The police focused on Lizzie too much from the start. But hilariously, a lot of the accounts that say Lizzie was innocent spoke of her being a woman. They say that it's incapable of her having thought this murder through. I know this is a weird time to talk about equality, but yes, women can also be murderers. I feel like there's enough female killers out there that this shouldn't be disputed, but I guess at the time it was. Weird time to fight for gender equality, but yeah, women can kill people too. Maybe she would have struggled with an axe, but I know some pretty strong women who wouldn't, so not sure I agree with that one. But I wanted to go through an extremely detailed account from American Heritage that reads, "By Saturday, the day of the funerals, the police felt that they had little choice but to arrest Lizzie. She alone, they felt, would have had the opportunity to commit the murders. They found it hard to believe that anyone could have passed through the house unseen by Lizzie, who claimed to have been on the first floor while Abby was being murdered above. It also strained credibility to assert, as Lizzie did, that Abby's 210-pound body had crashed to the floor without a sound. Furthermore, despite a reward offered by the Borden sisters, no sender of the note that Lizzie claimed had called Abby to town could be found. Lizzie's own contradictory answers to the first questions put to her by police were highly damaging. When asked her whereabouts when her father was killed, she gave different answers to different interrogators. In the backyard, in the loft getting a piece of iron for sinkers, up in the loft eating pears. The closed barn loft would have been so insufferably hot that day that few would have visited it voluntarily. In Lizzie's favor was the fact that she had been neat and clean when first seen after the murders. The police were certain that the murderer would have been covered with blood. Though puzzled by Lizzie's cleanliness, police were certain that they found the murder weapon. Lying in a box of dusty tools stored high on a chimney jog in the basement was a hatchet head. It was neither rusty nor old, though it had been freshly rubbed in ashes, perhaps to make it appear so. Moreover, its wooden handle, from which the blood would have been difficult to remove, had been broken off near the head. Throughout the 1890s, nearly every issue of Forum, Arena, Scribner's, North American Review, Popular Science Monthly, and Harper's, one of Lizzie's favorites, carried at least one article attesting to the gentleness, physical frailty, and docility of the well-bred American women. Many of these articles were written in response to the growing number of women who were demanding equal rights, and were written with the intention of proving women hopelessly unable to handle the sacred privileges of men. After having read many such articles written by learned gentlemen and anti-feminist women by the summer of 1892, men and women, regardless of how they stood on women's rights, felt certain that Lizzie Borden could have not hacked her parents to death. Physical and physiological frailties simply made it impossible. Popular theories about women's psychological and physiological makeup took on new importance to the followers of the Borden case. After detailed anatomical analysis, scientists confidently declared that the women of their era differed little from their prehistoric sisters. They spoke with assurance of women's arrested evolution. The fault, they agreed, lay in her reproductive capacity, which sapped vital powers that in men contributed to ever-improving physique and intellect. I just need a break to breathe. Oh my gosh. I'm not saying that, dudes watching, obviously men are gonna be stronger than women if, generally speaking, if you're getting the same amount of diet and exercise, how we're built, but come on, this is something else. Spinsters like Lizzie were, as one author charitably put it, deplorable accidents. But they were not wholly useless. Ah, thank goodness for that. The nation's old maids were urged to devote themselves to Christian charities and to teaching, not a reproductive calling. Lizzie's devotion to good works and the church followed this prescription nicely. Compelling indeed was the image of this pious daughter serving steaming bowls of soup to indigent newsboys and diligently trying to bring the gospel to the heathen Chinese of Fall River. Wow. Okay. Getting a bit racist up in here too, huh? Don't know why I didn't notice that on my first read-through. Wow. While anatomy studied the size of a woman's skull, physiologists examined its contents. Among the qualities found to be essentially female were spiritual sensitivity, a good memory for minutiae, and a great capacity for ennobling love. These positive attributes, however, could not obscure the physiologic's basic premise. Women were illogical, inconsistent, and incapable of independent thought. It is no accident that these traits bore striking resemblance to those attributed in children. As one psychologist pointed out in Scribner's, women are merely large babies. They are short-sighted, frivolous, and occupy an intermediate stage between children and men. And what am I reading? Okay. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much why Lizzie Borden got off the hook for this case, if you're asking me. She was just not capable of doing it. That's a thing that was written. I don't know what else to say about it. I thought it was pretty hilarious, if I'm being honest, and sort of a break from the darker tragedy here that really occurred. I think I've always known that Lizzie Borden got away with murder, but I've never really known why. Of course, some say that the place is haunted, and one writer on Novel Suspect even states, "Over the years, I've witnessed a lot of paranormal activity in the home where the murders took place. It's a great spot to bring people who are just learning to investigate, because something almost always happens there. The more I investigate the Borden house, the more I realize that even though there is strong activity, none of the activity is interacting with me. My guess is that what's occurring in the house is a highly residual haunt, where there is a lot of energy in the space, but that it's not necessarily from active ghosts. I think that the supernatural energy is increased by people coming into the house, knowing about murders and legends about Lizzie, and they bring all their own speculations in hopes to see something spooky. There are artifacts and newspaper clippings all over the home and the gift shop. The energy of the Borden house is fed often and fed well by one of the most notorious true crime cases in American history." Ah yes, the gift shop. And I suppose that brings us full circle, doesn't it? Really, I can't blame Lizzie Borden's parents if they're still haunting the place. I could go into a lot more detail on this, but really today I just wanted to talk a little bit about how Lizzie got away with murder, the ridiculous statements that were put out there by the press, and how now it's seen as, well, one of the most notorious unsolved cases. At least officially unsolved, even though I'm pretty sure we kind of know what happened. Also, I'm sorry I stumbled through today's video a little bit more than usual. My mouth is actually severely burned from an encounter with hot cocoa. I didn't have marshmallows left. I put some fluff in instead, and it basically turned to lava. So sorry about that. By next week, I should sound a lot more normal. But thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. If you liked today's video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you did, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!